Hey there, welcome to the types of emotions lesson. We're going to go over several different types of emotions. We're going to talk about useful and non-useful emotions, enjoyable and negative emotions, and then we're going to talk about the differences between happiness, well-being, pleasure, and success. At first glance, this lesson might not seem as useful as it is, but I can tell you it will change your life. So just pay attention. Get excited. Okay, now useful emotions. Useful emotions are emotions that they're useful. They help you evolve. They're not necessarily positive though. They can be positive, but they don't have to be. So examples that are useful but don't necessarily feel good: determination, persistence, acceptance. Ooh, that's a good one. Courage. Like these don't really feel that good. There's like a grittiness to some of them. There's uncomfortableness to some of them, but they're so useful. Examples that feel good, that are useful, are like really obvious: love, generosity, confidence, those sorts of things. The point here is to think about emotions that are useful and not useful, because how you feel is a choice. And I want you to start to think about whether or not the emotions that you're feeling are useful or not. Your willingness to feel useful but tough emotions is going to directly relate to your success, because the path to success is not comfortable. Okay, so the more that you can use courage, for example, the more successful you'll be, because you have to be willing to feel that uncomfortable emotion that's useful. It's beautiful. Okay, non-useful emotions. Now this is really what was the game changer for me. I just thought emotions were all equal, but that is not true. And when I learned this, oh my gosh, it rocked my world. Some emotions are not useful at all. Now, I'm not talking about specifically negative emotions. I'm talking about useful versus non-useful, and whether they're positive feeling or negative feeling doesn't matter. They can be useful or not useful in either way. So, examples of non-useful emotions. Comfort. Interesting, okay? Comfort is not serving you because it's familiar, it's known, so you indulge in it. You stay in the job because it's comfortable, even though if you're designing your dream life from your prefrontal cortex, you don't want to stay in it, but it's comfortable. Self-righteousness. Again, when I learned this, I was like, ooh, that's good. It's not useful. You want to be right no matter what. That's just not useful. It's just not useful. So when you start to think of useful versus non-useful emotions, you can start to get yourself out of these non-useful emotions. Confusion is something I'm going to talk about so much in this course, and I talk about it in terms of indulging. When you indulge in non-useful emotions, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You're basically sitting in I don't know, and it keeps you stuck. So there's a whole lesson on being stuck at the end of this course and what to do about it, but keep in mind that you don't have to sit in I don't know. It's indulging in confusion, and there are other options. You can be working on it. You can give yourself deadlines to figure it out. You can just make a choice and know that you're not sure, but do it anyways. When you indulge in confusion, you just waste time, which ultimately kills your dreams. Okay, this right here is magic. Worry. Worry is not a useful emotion. I love this quote by Eckhart Tolle. He says, worry pretends to be necessary. How good is that, you guys? So we think that worry is necessary, but it's not. So worry used to be necessary when we had to, live in the cave and worry about, food and that sort of thing. It's how we evolved to the modern world. It helped us get here, but now it's not necessary. We don't need to worry. And it's actually just a delusion about the future. And you can adopt the idea that you don't have to worry again. And this is crazy, because there are so many things in my life that I could be worrying about right now. I just quit my job. I just started working full time. Other people are seriously throwing worries at me all the time, like insurance, debt, all this stuff. It's crazy. And I'm just like, nope, I'm not indulging in the worry. It's super indulgent. You just sit there and it's not useful. It keeps you stuck and it doesn't help you solve the problem. So you can literally feel better without anything in your circumstances changing by choosing not to indulge in these non-useful emotions. Particularly worry is my favorite not to indulge in. So now let's just look at the enjoyable emotions. These are like the feel-good emotions. You guys know what these look like: peace, love, serenity, gratitude, joy, happiness. And then the same thing with the negative emotions. These are obvious: sadness, rejection, heartbreak, anger, hate, fear. So the point that I want you to get from this lesson is there's different ways to categorize emotions. The most obvious would be like the positive and the negative, the ones that feel good and the ones that don't. But breaking them up as useful and non-useful is so much more powerful for designing your dream life, since you get to choose how you want to feel. Life is 50-50. You will feel positive emotions 50% of the time, and the other 50% of the time it's going to be neutral or negative. This will blow your mind if you really let it. And I want you to remember that you might be thinking, well, I don't actually feel negative emotion 50% of the time. And that might be because you're avoiding it. You might be reacting by eating your feelings. You might be drinking. You might be doing other things. But if you really just experience your feelings, you're going to notice that it's more like 50-50. So let's talk about some words that I throw around in the course a lot, specifically types of emotions. Happiness. I want you to think about what happiness means to you, because happiness is an experience. And it's defined on Google as a feeling of contentment, delight, or being pleased. It's available to you right now, and it's not on the other side of something else. And it's totally within your capacity to feel happy, but you have to clean up your mind from all that negative chatter and clutter. Once you do this, you take control of your mental health, and then you are happy. Well-being is a little bit different. Well-being is a state of being that comes from within. So there's so many different metrics for measuring and defining well-being out there, but some of my favorite include like being content with yourself internally, regardless of what's happening externally. Being in flow, having self-acceptance, having complete autonomy. Living your purpose in life. So well-being is like a step above happiness, where happiness is just like this feeling of joy, this experience, where well-being is deeper and more meaningful, okay? Pleasure is different. Pleasure is a temporary feeling of comfort that comes from something external. It's not bad when it's sought in addition to your own internal happiness. The problem is that we often confuse our internal happiness for external pleasures. So that's the key difference here. Nothing's wrong with, sometimes I say like pleasuring yourself, and that sounds so like weird and inappropriate, but nothing's wrong with like the external pleasure. It's just that you want to do that in addition to your own internal happiness. You don't want to do it as a substitute for it. Examples, drinking, food, Netflixing, vacationing, manis, petties, shopping, whatever, we all do all of them, but you might have one of choice. You can actually, quote unquote, feel good most of the time and not be in well-being or happiness just by over-pleasuring yourself, by doing whatever it is externally to get that temporary feeling of comfort. You cannot maintain this forever because it's exhausting and not sustainable, but you can create this ongoing feeling of pleasure. You're just always going to be seeking more. This is why most people want more money. They want to spend it to over-pleasure themselves. More vacations, more eating, more drinking. You basically pursue pleasure more extravagantly when you have more money. So this is really important to think about. You can actually be super, super, super happy, just as happy now as if you had way, 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 way more money, by focusing on your internal happiness and well-being and just using, external pleasure in addition to that state. You're always going to be dependent on pleasure if you seek it as your happiness, and you'll never get to the true happiness from within. That's why so many people set out these big goals and they think that that's where they'll be happy, and then they get there and then they're not. Okay, that's not how happiness works. Don't confuse happiness with well-being with pleasure. They're all separate. Success is also different. Success is the accomplishment of an aim, an attainment of popularity or profit, or attaining prosperity. That's how Google defines it. Basically, it's something that you can achieve. There's going to be feelings of doubt and fear and negative emotion. That is normal when you're pursuing this aim of accomplishment. Do not confuse success with happiness. Success requires you to get uncomfortable to achieve your goals. You're going to have to use curiosity and courage and resilience and persistence, all of these emotions. That is so separate from happiness. And if you get nothing else from this course, understand that. There are major differences between the types of emotions you experience. Negative and positive is what we think of most often, but there's useful and non-useful, and I love breaking up emotions that way. I first heard that from Brooke Castillo on the Life Coach School podcast. It's just brilliant. There is also a difference between happiness, well-being, success, and pleasure. That's so important for you to understand when you're designing your dream life, because you want to make sure you're designing it just for the purpose of designing it, not for the purpose of, filling some internal void that you're feeling that can only be changed by working on your mental and emotional health. So remember these differences and make sure you consider them when you're choosing the results that you want in your life and the emotions that you want to feel and the belief systems that you want to create for yourself. Okay, I will see you in the next lesson.